Norman Bethune, a famed Canadian surgeon and communist who provided medical aid to Spanish Republican and Chinese Communist forces, is dead.
Bethune, The Making of a Hero, a Chinese-Canadian co-production that is now Canada's most expensive film in history, is shown at Montreal World Film Festival. It will bomb in its theatrical run. Over the previous 50 years, the film had gone through multiple scripts, studios, and financiers before filming even started. Its 5 years of filming saw numerous production troubles and behind-the-scenes drama. Ted Allen, a journalist who knew Bethune, starts writing a screenplay about Bethune's life in 1940 and sold it to 20th Century Fox for $25,000 in 1942. They did not produce it, and the Red Scare halted any progress. Allen continued his writings on Bethune despite this roadblock, and his book, The Scalpel, The Sword, The Story of Dr. Norman Bethune, written by Sidney Gordon, is released to $1.5 million in sales. They went to China after being requested to write a script for a film about Bethune by the China Film Bureau, but this failed to get off the ground as Allen did not want to write the script the Chinese wanted. Allen and Gordon would never work again, and Gordon would not help with any film deals up to his death. The script was passed around by multiple studios, including Columbia and Warner Brothers over the next few decades. The idea of a film about Bethune seemed destined to remain in development hell until the release of Lies My Father Told Me. Written in 1949, the short story by Allen eventually became a film in the 1970s. It was the highest-grossing Canadian film of 1975, and won Canadian Screen Award for Best Motion Picture. Allen bought his script back from Fox, and the Canadian Film Development Corporation invested $10,000 into his first draft in 1976. John Kemeny secured additional investment from Columbia, but Allen had to rewrite the script 4 times between 1975 and 1978 due to the head of Columbia changing multiple times. The project once again stalled after this. Warner Brothers said that it would finance the film if a major star was cast as Bethune. Robert Redford, Jack Nicholson, Paul Newman, Dustin Hoffman, and Warren Beatty were considered, but only Redford was interested. Redford wanted the script rewritten, but the producers couldn't afford to do so. In June 1980, it was announced that the film would be budgeted at $25 million and directed by Ted Kotcheff. Kemeny and Kotcheff tried to negotiate a deal with the China Film Corporation and August First Film Studio. Filming was meant to start in February 1981, but financial troubles halted any effort. The project was dead in the water again, but would be revived by the efforts of Julie Allen, Ted Allen's daughter. She worked at film producers Nicholas Claremont and Pieter Cronenberg's company and showed them the script, which they bought for $5,000 in 1985. She also successfully negotiated with the Chinese government to get financing from them. The project also received support from European producers. French producer Jacques Dorfman agreed to become a minority co-producer in exchange for Cronenberg and Claremont becoming minority co-producers in his film A Woman of Shanghai, which was also being shot in China.
What it cost Bertolucci and Spielberg $5 million to $6 million to shoot in China cost us nothing.
The budget was listed as this in 1986. $5 million from Canada, $3 million from China, and $2 million from France for a grand total of $10 million. This was up to $13.5 million the next year. The final budget came to $15 to $20 million after additional investments by Hemdale Film Corporation and Telefilm. The film was now inundated with cash, but Kotcheff still thought it wasn't enough. He thought that the film would face the same budgetary problems that his film Joshua Then and Now suffered through. He finally left the project due to payment disputes. They were now in search of a director. Norman Jewison considered directing, but he was already committed to Moonstruck. Sidney Furie said that he could only do the film if it was delayed, and Ralph Thomas said that the script needed major changes. Finally, Philip Borzos, who had been out of work for 18 months, was selected in January 1987. Now everything was in place for filming to start. Well, everything except for the minor detail of who was to play Bethune. Back in the 1940s, Darryl Zanuck wanted Walter Pidgeon to play Bethune, but a few decades of age and dying put that out of the question now. A laundry list of famous actors were put up, including Sean Connery, Richard Dreyfuss, Christopher Plummer, and Robert Redford. Again, Donald Sutherland was selected, and he had already had experience in the role from a Canadian Broadcasting Corporation TV film in the 1970s. Filming started in China in April 1987, but immediately faced problems. A protest by the film crew over poor working conditions increased the budget by $50,000. They also had to delay production for a year until Telefilm gave them another $2.5 million. The film was also shot in Canada and Spain and ended filming in December 1988. During this production, Bob McKeown made Strangers in a Strange Land, a documentary about the filming of Bethune, The Making of a Hero, in China. Filmline helped finance the film, but later refused to let it air on TV. A Japanese plane could not be found in China for a scene of an attack against Bethune's caravan, but was found in Canada. However, the Chinese could not find somebody to fly it, and a foreign pilot would not be allowed to fly over a military-sensitive area. A model plane that was arrived months late was given to the production, but it was destroyed in a test flight. Sutherland stated, "Thankfully, the pilot was unhurt." Another odd special effects story was recounted by the film's special effects coordinator.
The Chinese couldn't understand why we would not blow up a real mule. They wanted to put explosives on the side of the animal's head.
Production was further hampered by severe script problems.
Ted's script was pretentious and two-dimensional and unplayable.
Sutherland and Borzos stated that the script was almost entirely rewritten by Dennis Clark. Allen criticized Sutherland for wanting the script rewritten and stated that he was egomaniacal. Conflict continued into the editing room. Borzos proposed a 150-minute long version of the film that was chronological, but it was rejected by the producers, Telefilm, and the CBC. A 116-minute long non-linear version was made without the director's involvement. The Canadian government heavily supported the project, with Minister of Communications Flora MacDonald ordering them to complete it at any cost. However, this support ended after the Tiananmen Square massacre. Production delays obviously impacted the film's release schedule, and it went through multiple announced premieres. One of these was the 1988 Toronto International Film Festival, where Strangers in a Strange Land was shown. Despite all of this, there was still faith in the film. Filmstar spent $2 million advertising the film, only for it to earn 1/5 of that in theaters. Norman Jewison suggested making a television series in the late 1970s, but all of the networks rejected the idea. The idea was revived in the 90s, and the theatrical film was re-edited as a 2-part 4-hour miniseries. You might have noticed that I showed a lot of footage from the film. You would assume that copyright would be an issue, but this film, which is one of Canada's most expensive, is basically abandonware. Its only home media release was on VHS. Most of the people and companies involved in this film are either dead or out of business. The only online version is an Internet Archive copy of the theatrical cuts uploaded by Encore Plus. There is also a YouTube upload with Spanish subtitles. I also asked a bunch of Canadians if they ever heard of this film, and not a single one of them said yes.